All right, today we're tackling a really important topic, something that's been bubbling up in the news and is absolutely critical for your civil services exam prep. We're talking about India-Nepal relations. So from all of us here at Unlock UPSC, let's dive straight into this editorial analysis.
So get this, it all kicks off with something as simple as a banknote. You heard that right. Nepal just put out a new 100 rupee note, and it's managed to reignite a major, long-standing, and honestly, very sensitive border dispute with India. Now, you've got to be asking yourself, how on earth can a piece of paper, just a bit of currency, cause such a huge diplomatic firestorm? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
Okay, first things first, let's take a closer look at this banknote. What is it about this specific note that's causing all the trouble? We're going to see how it's become more than just money. It's a symbol of a much, much deeper political issue. So this isn't just a regular banknote. Oh no, it's a full-blown political statement. And here's why. It features a new revised map of Nepal. And on that map, it includes 3 very specific, very disputed territories: Kalapani, Lipulekh, and Lipiyadhura. Now think about this. They put this controversial map on the 100 rupee note, not some high-value, rarely seen bill, but a common, everyday banknote. That's a very clever, very calculated move. It means this political message is going to be in everyone's hands, circulating everywhere, turning every single transaction into a little reminder of Nepal's territorial claims. And as you can imagine, the reactions were immediate and, frankly, pretty predictable. It just shows how deep the divide is. From Nepal's perspective, putting this map on their currency is a powerful assertion of sovereignty. It's them saying, this is our land, officially. But for India, it's seen as a one-sided move with no historical backing. India's official statement even called it an artificial enlargement. And you know what's interesting? That's the exact same phrase they used back in 2020 when this whole thing blew up before. It tells you one thing for sure. Neither side has budged an inch. Right, so a conflict like this doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. There's always a backstory. To really get what's going on, we need to rewind a bit and look at some key political moments in Nepal. This timeline is going to give us the context we need to understand why this is happening now. Okay, look closely at this timeline, because it tells a really interesting story. You see that huge shift back in 2008 when Nepal became a republic? Big deal. Then, fast forward to June 2020. This is the critical moment. Then Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli's government is the one that first got this new map approved by Parliament. Now jump to 2025. What do we see? Widespread protests, political crisis, a lot of internal instability. And here's the classic playbook, something we see all over the world. When things are shaky at home, governments often use these big nationalistic issues, like a border dispute, to fire up national pride and, distract everyone from the problems at home. Understanding that political backdrop is absolutely crucial for any deep analysis of this situation. And if we're talking about the political backdrop, there's one figure who is absolutely central to this whole story: K.P. Sharma Oli. When he was prime minister, he was really known for 2 things: taking a strong anti-India stance and, at the same time, getting much closer to China. He was a master at using this border dispute to whip up nationalistic feelings. He basically took what was, for a long time, an issue for mapmakers and historians and turned it into this powerful political weapon. And that, of course, put a huge strain on the historic relationship between India and Nepal. But, these things rarely happen in a vacuum, right? Especially in a region as complex as South Asia. So that brings us to the big question. What about outside influences? Let's talk about what many analysts call the China factor.
So here's what many political analysts are saying. They point to China's growing influence in Nepal as a major complicating factor. The theory goes that certain governments in Nepal have discovered that stoking anti-India sentiment is politically, useful. And this is seen as being partly fueled by that external influence from China. So from this perspective, the border dispute isn't just about the border. It becomes this handy tool for domestic politics and for shifting foreign policy.
And suddenly, this whole thing gets a lot bigger. It's not just a disagreement between 2 neighbors anymore. It starts to look more like a move on a giant geopolitical chessboard. Many believe the real game being played here is the strategic competition between India and China. And poor Nepal, it's caught right in the middle, trying to figure out how to navigate all the pressures and maybe the opportunities that come with being stuck between 2 giants.
Okay, so we've talked politics, we've talked geopolitics, but what does this all actually mean on the ground? What are the real-world consequences? I mean, how can a map on a little piece of paper really damage a relationship that's so incredibly deep, so culturally connected, and so strategically vital like the one between India and Nepal?
Well, the fallout is actually pretty serious. On the high-level diplomatic front, yeah, it creates friction and mistrust. That makes it harder to work together on really important stuff like trade or security. But the damage goes so much deeper than that. It starts to chip away at the special, unique bond between the people themselves. There's this beautiful term for it, the Roti-Beti relationship, which means the bond of braid and daughter. It speaks to the deep cultural links, the families that span the border, everything. And it's that very social fabric, woven over centuries, that's now under threat from all this political tension. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, look at this number. Over 1,850 kilometers. And this isn't some heavily fortified, militarized border. It's an open border. It's not just a line on a map. It's a living, breathing zone where people cross daily for work, for trade, to visit family. The stability of a border like that is everything. So when a dispute like this flares up, it doesn't just affect politicians in capital cities, it threatens the everyday lives of millions of people. But it's really important to remember the other side of this coin. Despite all this political tension, there's a deep, deep history of friendship and cooperation. We can't forget that. India has always been the first to show up whenever Nepal is in crisis, like during those terrible earthquakes. It's a bond built on genuine mutual support, and that's the positive side of the relationship, the counterweight to all this conflict. But that's also what's at stake here. That's what's at risk of being damaged. All right, let's switch gears a little. We've covered a lot of ground. Now let's pull it all together and structure it in a way that's going to be super useful for your mains answer writing. For the exam, you need to be able to look at this from every angle, so that's what we'll do. Now, this table right here, this is basically your blueprint for a fantastic mains answer. Look, anyone can just list Nepal's position and India's position. That's the basic level. But if you want to score really well, you have to dig into that third column, the underlying factors. That's where the real analysis is. You need to connect the dots between the territorial claims and things like Nepal's internal politics, the China factor, and the rise of nationalism. That's what elevates your answer from just describing the problem to actually analyzing it. And finally, here's the ammunition you need to back up your analysis. You've got to sprinkle these key facts throughout your answer, naming the specific disputed territories, Kalapani, Lipulekh, and Lipiyadhura, knowing the exact date the map was approved, citing the length of the border. Using these precise details shows the examiner that you haven't just skimmed the headlines. You really know your stuff. That kind of command over the details is what makes a good answer a great one. So let's wrap up with a practice question. This is exactly the kind of thing you'd see in your mains paper. And notice the key words here. It's not just asking what happened. It's asking you to discuss the recent factors and analyze the geopolitical implications. To tackle this, you'd have to weave together everything we've talked about, the domestic politics in Nepal, the bigger geopolitical picture with China, and what this all means for India's own foreign policy, particularly its neighborhood-first approach. So I'll leave you with that to chew on. Really think about how you'd structure an answer to that question using all the points we've gone over. See you again tomorrow with an important editorial. For this, subscribe to the YouTube channel Unlock UPSC. Thank you.